I want to start with a Tuesday morning. Not a dramatic Tuesday. Not a Tuesday that announced itself as significant. An ordinary Tuesday. 6:14 a.m. My daughter Emma is 4 years old and she is standing in the doorway of the bathroom in her pajamas with her hair going in 4 different directions and a stuffed elephant named Gerald tucked under one arm, and she is watching me pin my rank on my uniform in the mirror. She says, "Mama, why do you have to go?" Every morning. The same question. Every single morning for the past 2 years since I received my commission and since our life reorganized itself around what it means to be a military family. Mama, why do you have to go? I pin the last pin. I turn around. I crouch down to her level. I say, "Because it is my job, baby." She says, "Is your job more important than me?" I hold her face in my hands. I say, "Nothing is more important than you. My job is how I take care of you." She thinks about this for a moment with the specific, serious concentration of a 4-year-old processing something she does not fully have words for. Then she says, "Okay." She holds up Gerald. She says, "Can Gerald come with you today so you are not lonely?" I look at my daughter. At the 4-year-old who has decided that her stuffed elephant is the appropriate solution to her mother's loneliness at work. I say, "Gerald needs to stay here and take care of you." She considers this. She says, "That is a good point." I kiss her forehead. I stand up. I pick up my cover. And I walk out the door into a morning that is already asking more of me than I have fully prepared to give. This is what it looks like. This is what they do not show you. My name is Captain Sarah Mitchell. United States Army. I am 29 years old. I am a wife. I am the mother of Emma, who is 4, and of James, who is 18 months old and who is currently asleep in his crib with the specific, complete abandon of someone who has not yet learned to worry about anything. And I am trying to be all 3 of these things at the same time. Not in the inspirational poster version of trying. In the real version. The version with the 6:14 a.m. bathroom doorways and the stuffed elephants and the specific, daily weight of a life that requires more of you than any single version of yourself can provide. This is that story. If you are new here, please subscribe right now and drop your country and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you all the way back. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. My parents are both teachers. My father teaches high school history. My mother teaches middle school English. They are the kind of people who understand the world through the lens of education, not in the narrow sense of formal schooling but in the broader sense of learning as the primary mechanism through which people become who they are. They raised me to ask questions. Not to accept the first answer. Not to stop at the surface of things. To keep going until I understood something at the level where I could explain it to someone else. I ask questions constantly. It drives some people crazy. It made me a good soldier. I was an ROTC cadet at Ohio State. Not because my family had a military tradition, they did not. Because I was looking, in my sophomore year of college, for something that required more of me than my classes were requiring, and ROTC presented itself at the right moment. I signed up. I showed up. I discovered something. I discovered that I was good at leading people. Not in the charismatic, front-of-the-room way that leadership is sometimes imagined. In the specific, patient, deeply engaged way of someone who wants to understand what each person needs in order to perform well and who is willing to do the work of understanding it. I am a listener. Military leadership rewards listeners. I commissioned as a second lieutenant at 22. My parents came to the ceremony. My mother cried. My father took approximately 400 photographs. I met my husband Daniel at a 4th of July party in Columbus 2 months before I commissioned. He was 24. He worked in software development. He was the kind of man who arrives at parties and finds the quietest corner of the room and stands in it with a drink and a genuine interest in anyone who comes to stand with him. I came to stand with him. We talked for 3 hours. He asked questions the same way I asked questions, with the specific, genuine curiosity of someone who wants to understand rather than someone who is performing interest. I noticed this immediately. It is the thing I noticed first about him. Not his face, which is, for the record, a very good face. But the quality of his listening. I told him I was about to commission as an Army officer. He said, "What does that mean for the next few years?" I said, "It means I move when they tell me to move." He said, "Where do you want to move?" I said, "Wherever they need me." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I work remotely." I looked at him. He said, "I am just telling you. In case it is relevant." I said, "It might be relevant." He said, "Good." We exchanged numbers. He called the next morning. Not to arrange a date. To tell me he had looked up the bases where new second lieutenants were typically assigned and that he wanted to know if any of them were places I was hoping to go. I said, "Did you research Army base assignments for my benefit?" He said, "I did." I said, "That is either the most practical or the most romantic thing anyone has ever done." He said, "Can it be both?" I said, "Yes." Daniel and I dated long distance for the first 8 months of my service. Not because we chose the long distance. Because Fort Benning is in Georgia and Daniel was in Columbus and the Army makes the decisions and I had signed the agreement that authorized those decisions. He visited every 6 weeks. Not every 2 months. Every 6 weeks. He planned his work schedule around the visits with the specific, deliberate priority of someone who has decided what matters most and who arranges everything else around it. I noticed this. I have never stopped noticing it. We got engaged on a Sunday morning in February. Not dramatically, Daniel does not do dramatic. He made breakfast. He put the ring on the edge of my coffee cup. When I picked up the coffee, I found it. I said, "Daniel." He said, "Yes." I said, "There is a ring on my coffee cup." He said, "I know." I said, "Did you tape it there?" He said, "Temporarily." I did not want it to fall in. I looked at him. He said, "I have been thinking about this since August." I said, "It is February." He said, "I needed to be sure I was sure." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "I have been sure since August. I just wanted to give the sureness time to prove itself." I held the ring. I said, "Yes." Of course I said yes. We got married the following October. Small ceremony at a venue in Columbus that we chose because it had a garden and Daniel had decided, without telling me until we saw it, that I should get married somewhere with a garden because gardens are the specific combination of structure and wildness that he associated with me. I said, "You associated me with a garden?" He said, "Structure and wildness." Yes. I said, "That is either a compliment or an insult." He said, "It is both. That is why it is accurate." My parents were there. His parents were there. 43 people who mattered to both of us. The ceremony was 22 minutes long. We had requested short. The officiant delivered short. It was perfect. The first year of our marriage was the year I learned what military marriage actually is. Not the version I had heard described. The actual version. Military marriage is a specific kind of partnership that is different from civilian partnership in a way that is hard to explain to people who have not been inside it. The difference is this. In civilian partnership, two people make decisions together about the shape of their life. Where to live. When to move. What job to take. When to have children. How close to be to family. In military partnership, one person has already made a decision, they chose the army, and that decision makes most of the subsequent decisions. The other person participates in the life that results from the primary decision. Not passively, Daniel participates fully, completely, with the specific engagement of someone who has chosen the life that comes with the person. But within a framework that was established before he arrived. He understands this. He has always understood it. He does not resent it. I do not take this for granted. I have met military spouses who resent the framework, who did not fully understand what they were choosing when they married a soldier, and who carry the resentment of someone who has been surprised by what they are living. Daniel was not surprised. He researched the base assignments before he asked for my number. He knew. And his knowing, his specific, deliberate, fully informed choosing of this life, is the foundation that every difficult thing we have been through has been able to rest on. Emma Grace Mitchell. Born at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, on a Thursday morning in March, at 6:42 a.m., during a week in which Daniel had been awake for 41 hours managing a work crisis that had nothing to do with the Army and everything to do with the specific, uncooperative nature of software at critical moments. He was in the delivery room. He had been there for 11 hours. He held my hand through 11 hours of labor with the specific, quiet endurance of someone who has decided that this is where he is supposed to be and who is not going anywhere. When Emma arrived, when they put her on my chest and I felt the specific, complete, world-reorganizing weight of a new person who had not existed 6 minutes ago and who now existed completely, Daniel was beside me. He said nothing for approximately 30 seconds. Then he said, "Oh. Just that. Oh." The specific sound of someone whose capacity for language has been temporarily exceeded by what they are experiencing. I said, "Yes." He said, "She is." He stopped. I said, "I know." He looked at her. He looked at me. He said, "You did that." I said, "We did that." He said, "I mostly watched." I said, "You held my hand for 11 hours. He said, "It was the least I could do." The first year of Emma's life was the year I understood what I had not understood before. I had understood that the Army required sacrifice. I had not understood that sacrifice has different shapes when you are the person doing the sacrificing versus when you are the person watching someone you love sacrifice. 6 weeks after Emma was born, I returned to duty. Not because I wanted to. Because the Army's maternity leave at the time was 6 weeks and 6 weeks ended on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday I was back in uniform. Emma was 6 weeks old. Daniel was home with a 6-week-old infant. I drove to the post in the dark on a Wednesday morning and I sat in the parking lot for 11 minutes before I went in. Not because I was uncertain about my commitment to service. Because Emma was 6 weeks old and I was driving away from her in the dark, and the specific, physical weight of that, the specific, biological weight of a mother leaving a 6-week-old, is not something you can prepare for intellectually. You can know it is coming. You cannot know what it is going to feel like until it is happening. I sat in the parking lot for 11 minutes. Then I went in. Because the going in was what I had committed to. And commitment, I have learned, is not the feeling of wanting to honor it. It is the practice of honoring it when the feeling is the opposite of wanting to. The second deployment. I deployed for the first time before Emma was born. 8 months. Afghanistan. I will not describe the specifics of what happened there because the specifics are not this story's. What I will tell you is that the first deployment, the one before Emma, and the second deployment, which came when Emma was 2.5 and James was 3 months old, are two entirely different experiences. Not in the operational sense. In the leaving sense. Leaving before children is hard. Leaving after children is a specific kind of devastation that I was not prepared for, even though I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming for 8 months. 8 months of knowing that the orders were there and that the departure date was real, and that on a specific morning I was going to drive to the post and get on a transport and leave a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old and a husband who was going to manage all of it alone. I spent 8 months knowing. The knowing did not prepare me. Nothing prepares you. The morning of the departure. I want to tell you about this morning carefully because it is the hardest morning of this story and it deserves to be described honestly. 5:30 a.m. Emma was awake. She should not have been awake. We had put her to bed at the normal time and we had hoped, with the specific, fragile hope of parents who understand that they are hoping against the particular awareness of small children, that she would sleep through the departure. She did not sleep through the departure. She was awake at 5:30 and she came to the doorway of our bedroom in her pajamas with Gerald under her arm and she said, "Mama, are you leaving today?" I was in uniform. She could tell by the uniform. I said, "Yes, baby. Today is the day." She stood in the doorway for a moment. Then she came and she climbed up on the bed and she sat in the middle of it with Gerald in her lap and she said, "How long?" I said, 7 months. She did not fully understand 7 months. She understood some months. She understood that months were long. She said, "Will you be back for my birthday?" Her birthday was in March. The deployment was scheduled to end in February. I said, "Yes. I will be back before your birthday." She said, "Promise?" I looked at my 2-year-old daughter sitting in the middle of our bed in her pajamas with her elephant and asking me to promise. I said, "I promise." She nodded. Then she held out her arms. I sat on the edge of the bed and I held her. She was small enough that when I held her she fit entirely inside the circle of my arms. She stayed there for a long time. Then she said, into my shoulder, "Gerald says he will take care of Daddy and James while you are gone." I said, "Gerald is very responsible." She said, "I know. I trained him." I held my daughter. I breathed. I memorized the specific weight of her in my arms. Then I stood up. I kissed her forehead. I walked to James's room. He was asleep. 3 months old. The specific, complete, world-unaware sleep of a 3-month-old. I stood over his crib for 4 minutes. I did not touch him because I was afraid of waking him, and I was afraid of what waking him would do to me, and I was afraid that if I started I would not be able to stop. I stood over his crib for 4 minutes and I memorized his face. Then I went downstairs. Daniel was in the kitchen. He had made coffee. He handed me a cup. We stood in the kitchen in the specific, waited quiet of 2 people who have run out of things to say that are sufficient for what is happening. Then he said, "Come home." Not, "Be safe." Not, "I will miss you." Not, "I love you." Come home. I said, "I will come home." He held me. Not a quick hold. The specific, full-body hold of someone who is memorizing the shape of the person they are holding and who wants the memory to be complete. I held him back. Then I picked up my bag. I walked to the door. I turned around one final time. He was standing in the kitchen holding his coffee cup. He said, "I have got them." 3 words. The 3 words of someone who understands that the thing he is being asked to carry is enormous and who is telling you that he is going to carry it and that you do not have to worry about the carrying. I have got them. I said, "I know." I walked out the door. 7 months. I want to tell you what 7 months of deployment with 2 small children at home looks like from the deployed side. Because people describe deployment from the home side, the spouse managing, the children asking questions, the specific, grinding daily work of a solo parent. But the deployed side has its own specific weight. The weight of being present for something enormous happening somewhere else. Video calls at specific, managed times that depend on time zones and operational schedules and connectivity that is reliable until it is not. Emma on the screen with Gerald. James on the screen learning to hold his head up, then learning to roll over, then sitting up, the specific, accumulated milestones of an infant's first year happening in 2-dimensional rectangles on a laptop screen in a tent in a place I will not name. Daniel on the screen with the specific, controlled quality of someone who is managing everything and who is determined to communicate that the managing is okay, not easy, but okay, so that I can do what I need to do without the weight of his difficulty added to the weight of mine. I saw my son's first tooth on a video call. He got his first tooth on a Thursday. Daniel called me the moment he noticed. It was 3 in the morning my time. I answered. Daniel held James up to the camera. He pointed at the tooth. He said, "There." I looked at the screen. At my son's face. At the small, new, specific tooth that had arrived while I was somewhere else. I said, "I see it." Daniel said, "He has been drooling for a week." I said, "I saw the drooling on the calls." He said, "I thought you might be able to tell something was coming." I said, "I could not tell." He said, "Neither could I until it was there." We looked at the tooth together on a video call at 3 in the morning my time, and it was not the same as being there, and we both knew it, and we did not say it because saying it did not help anything. I said, "Save the photo." He said, "I already have 14. I came home in February. 3 weeks before Emma's birthday. I had kept the promise. Daniel did not tell the children I was coming. He had planned it without telling me he was planning it. I found out when I called from the airport and he said, "Do not tell me your ETA. I want to see your face when you see them." I arrived at the house at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Daniel's car was in the driveway. I walked up the front path. I knocked on my own door. Because Daniel had asked me to knock. I knocked. I heard movement inside. I heard Emma's voice, the specific, high, carrying voice of a 4-year-old saying something I could not make out. The door opened. Emma was standing there. She looked at me. She looked at me for approximately 1 full second in the specific way of someone who is confirming that what they are seeing is real before they react to it. Then she screamed. Not a frightened scream. The specific, operatic, full-volume scream of a 4-year-old who has just seen the person she has been waiting for 7 months and whose feelings are too large for any quieter expression. She launched herself at me. I caught her. I held her. She was heavier than when I left. 4-year-olds gain weight in 7 months. 7 months ago she had fit entirely inside the circle of my arms. She still fit. Just barely. She said into my shoulder, "You came back." I said, "I promised." She said, "Gerald knew you would come back." I said, "Gerald is very wise." She said, "I know. I trained him." James. James was 10 months old when I came home. He had been 3 months old when I left. He did not know who I was. I want to tell you about this carefully because it is the thing about deployment and children that nobody fully prepares you for and that deserves its honest description. My son did not know who I was. Not because he had forgotten me. He had not forgotten me because at 3 months old there is not enough formed memory to forget. I had simply not been sufficiently present in his first 7 months of life to be a known person. He was in Daniel's arms when I came inside. He looked at me with the specific, assessing look of a 10-month-old encountering a new person. Not frightened. Assessing. I said, "Hi, buddy." He looked at me. He looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. Daniel said, "That is Mama." James looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached out one hand. Not to be held. Just reaching. The specific, exploratory gesture of a baby who is deciding something. I held out my hand. He grabbed my finger. He held it. He looked at me while holding my finger with the specific, serious concentration of someone who is doing important assessment work. Then he smiled. The specific, complete, full-face smile of a 10-month-old who has decided something favorable. I sat down on the floor of my own hallway and I cried. Not quietly. Not with the controlled, 90-second efficiency of basic training showers. The real kind. The specific, released, full kind of someone who has been holding something for 7 months and has found, in the smile of a 10-month-old who grabbed her finger, the specific place where the holding can finally end. Daniel sat down on the floor beside me. Emma sat down on my other side. James, still in Daniel's arms, looked at all of us sitting on the floor. He appeared to find this a reasonable development. He grabbed my finger again. We sat on the hallway floor for a long time. All 4 of us. I have been home for 8 months now. Emma is 4. She still asks why I have to go every morning. I still crouch down and say because it is my job, baby. She still offers Gerald. I still say Gerald needs to stay and take care of you. She still says that is a good point. James is 18 months old. He knows who I am now. He knows who I am with the specific, complete certainty of a child who has decided on his people and is not revising the list. When I come home in the evenings he crawls, at speed, with remarkable efficiency, across the floor to where I am standing and grabs my boot and uses it to pull himself to standing and then looks up at me with the expression that I now understand is his specific version of hello. He has not said mama yet. He says dada. He says baba. He says something that sounds like Gerald but is probably not. He has not said mama yet. I am waiting. Daniel says it is coming. I know it is coming. I am not impatient. I have learned patience in ways I could not have imagined at 22. I want to tell you about a Saturday morning. Last month. The specific, rare kind of Saturday morning that happens when no one has anywhere to be. Daniel made pancakes. Emma sat at the kitchen table in her pajamas with Gerald propped against the salt shaker. James sat in his high chair with the specific, concentrated expression of a child who is managing the significant task of eating a banana slice. I was still in pajamas. No uniform. No cover. No rank on the collar. Just me. In the kitchen. With my family. Emma was telling us a story, a long, elaborate, specific story about something Gerald had done overnight that I could not entirely follow because the plot was complex and the timeline was non-linear and several of the characters had the same name. I was not following the plot. I was watching my daughter tell it. The way her hands moved. The way her eyes went wide at the dramatic moments. The way she looked at James to make sure he was following even though James was 18 months old and was focused entirely on the banana. Daniel caught my eye across the table. He did not say anything. He just looked at me. The specific look of two people who have been through something difficult together and who are sitting on the other side of it in an ordinary kitchen on an ordinary Saturday and who both understand, without saying it, that the ordinary kitchen on the ordinary Saturday is the thing. This is the thing. Not the deployment. Not the commission. Not the rank or the uniform or the specific, accumulated professional achievements of a career I am proud of. This. Emma's story. James and the banana. Daniel's look across the kitchen table. This is what the rest of it is for. I am 29 years old. I have 2 more years until my next deployment decision point. I have not decided yet. Not because I am unsure of my commitment to service, I am not unsure of that. But because the decision point is real and the weight of it is real and decisions that affect the people you love deserve the specific, unhurried consideration of someone who takes the weight seriously. Daniel and I will decide together. Not, I will decide and he will support. Together. Because the specific thing that makes this marriage work, the thing that makes the departures survivable and the homecomings complete and the ordinary Saturday mornings in the kitchen the thing they are, is that we decide together. He researched the base assignments before he asked for my number. He put the ring on the edge of a coffee cup. He made breakfast on departure mornings and handed me coffee and said, "Come home and I have got them." He sat on the hallway floor with me. He saves 14 photographs of a tooth. He told me, once, when I asked him how he managed the 7 months alone with 2 small children and a software job and a partner who was somewhere she could not fully tell him about, he said, "I managed because you trusted me to manage." The trusting is the thing. When you trust someone completely, they have something to live up to. That is not a burden. That is the best gift. I looked at him. I said, that is either the most profound or the most practical thing you have ever said. He said, can it be both? I said, yes. Before you go, I want to say something. To every woman who is trying to be more than one thing at once, who is a soldier and a mother and a wife, and who wakes up on Tuesday mornings at 6:14 and pins the rank on the uniform while a 4-year-old watches from the doorway with a stuffed elephant. I want to tell you what I have learned. You are not going to do all of it perfectly. You are going to miss the tooth coming in. You are going to cry on the hallway floor. You are going to sit in parking lots for 11 minutes before you can walk in. You are going to have mornings when the question "why do you have to go" lands in a place that makes the answer very difficult to say. This is not failure. This is the specific, honest cost of a life that contains more than one essential thing. The cost is real. The life is worth it. Every ordinary Saturday morning in the kitchen. Every banana. Every story about Gerald. Every look across the table. Worth it. And the boot that a small hand grabs on the way to standing up. That most of all. Drop the word Gerald in the comments if this story reached something real in you. Gerald for the stuffed elephant. Gerald for every small, specific, irreplaceable thing that makes the big things possible. And if you are new here, subscribe. Every single day I share a new story about family, about service, about the people who are trying to be everything at once and who are doing it one Tuesday morning at a time. I will see you in the next one. Kayla's Dark Truth.